Hello, world. Patricia O'Connor and Frida Reba Darcy here today on the Bonsai balcony. We have ourselves a blustery spring day, and that's what our show is about. It's spring here on the left coast. I'm going to get this guy, the little Frida baby here. Okay. Today on the left coast of California in Alameda, beautiful Alameda, California. It is a little cloudy in and out. Look at that. But it's not. It's been mostly sunny. That just kind of blew in the last few minutes. Maybe it'll stick around. Maybe it won't. But it has been it's been 70 degrees here. I would say we are into spring. Our trees are waking up. And our water intake has increased. I was like, we're going to show little sprouts and sprigs everywhere because it is, everybody's awake. Everybody's starting to move water again and use that water to push out buds and stuff. Yeah. So this is kind of what it looks like when we're waking up. You need to darken up a little. But this is a quick look. I just thought this would be a good time to announce that spring in Alameda, California on the Bonsai balcony. It is warmer. Out of all the things that have been going on recently that have been some pretty hectic in the news way, a little something to look forward to is the fact that at least some places in the United States, it is starting to become spring. I'll come through here and water just a little bit. Quite windy today. It's very, very, very breezy. I think if I could see the pool, it has one of those little shimmers on it that shows that the wind is in a constant state of flux here. It's a little breezy, which is just goes right along with that whole spring thing. But look at all the buds on these cypress trees, the buds on the dawn redwoods, the buds all over my Kodaheim maples. My pines are waking up and starting to take in more water. They're starting to need water, as are my oaks. They're starting to need more water every day, along with my trident maple. My Japanese wisteria is starting to go in leaf. I'm still waiting. I see buds, but I'm still waiting on my Chinese wisteria to follow suit. And okay, that's got us kind of looking. I don't see a lot yet. I am seeing that the oak trees have, both of the oak trees, the Court Park oak and the coastal oak, have both increased their water intake, which tells me that they're awake, but I'm not starting to see my little salmon. Wait, as she says that, I'm just starting to see some of my little pink salmon colored buds. Now, on my last show, I was talking about how I was coming out of a cold, which we did. And also, I was explaining how excited I was for the prospects of this guy. We were about to go on a road trip with this guy and get some autographs. And that was a plan 1 month in the making. And it was a rather locked-in plan, as you can see. Well, as you can't maybe overly see, those areas where those graphs took have pretty much began to bark over. It's more barked over than it was, but this area, this avenue is closing. No, that's not why you don't see any new. That's not why you don't see any new grafts here. I wasn't able to get the tree grafted. My plan fell through literally in the parking lot. We never made the trip. My ride never showed. So that was actually hard for me to even wrap my head around it. On point. The person who I was supposed to meet was on point, and the person who was supposed to meet me in the parking lot so that we could transfer our tree to Auburn was not. And that appointment came and went, and this is the time of year to do that. To turn right around and reschedule is not doable. To go next season, I don't think I will have those areas available again for grafting because of bark. So change your plan. As far as I know, change your plan. That is not necessarily written in stone, but I believe that's what I'm looking at. I believe what I'm looking at is one good active graft there, and we are probably, instead of having 2 or 3 to go with to rebuild this tree, we're going to rebuild this tree with one. Is now the plan. So that that does mean a few things in particular. One, the old plan was is to get at least 2 more grafts, get 3 or 4 grafts going on the tree, get at least 2 more hopefully out of that, or at least 1 more out of that, and that would give us the foundation with which to start building our tree. Yes, I have seen grafted ponderosas that had 1 graft on them where a tree was built out of that. In fact, it's one of my favorite little grafted ponderosas. So I don't really have a problem with that from a design static. I think more gives you more options, and those options may at the end of the day be to cut those back. So I could have had more grafts going, and then have that help me exchange the energy, only to cut 2 of them back in our final design anyway. So I don't really know what I lost there, but I do know that this does change my game. With several active grafts there, we would have began in early spring, or a little later when we're actually further into spring, we would have begun cutting back some of our ponderosa growth. When we have our Japanese black pine growth more on the tree, and it's the dominant, then at that point, that would be a good time to repot. So even though I was looking at a root ball that I had even done a show about, being the original mountain soil and the root ball, and needing to exchange that out at some point, I had decided to watch my watering carefully and keep the balance of water and oxygen going more with tilting and watering and doing all those water practicing. Pretty much limp along and make sure that we can keep the vigor of the tree going and active when we're there. And then when we had more Japanese black pine growth than we had ponderosa, we could finish by cutting off the rest of the ponderosa growth at repot. So that was all in my mind, the stages that I needed to go through between here and repot and here and getting rid and our final styling, having ourselves take off with the Jap. So with this now being the case, with that one graft being our one active graft, our deal is different. We want to just sit back and do less, but just let the tree regain vigor and just get, let that graft gain vigor and growth and take over more of a part, and then we will reevaluate in summer. We're not going to do any cutting back now until at least June or July. So, and then it'll probably be a little bit slower. We're probably just going to, that'll slow us down a little, is another way of saying it. However, there was no reason now to not do our repot between now and the time that repotting season closes for us, which is not for here in the Bay Area. I get repotting season for a minute. Yeah. And by that I mean this. This tree is in its original mountain soil. I had been in conversation with one of our longtime viewers, and he also has a ponderosa that came from the same grower, I believe, and so he and I were discussing the state of the root ball and what he was doing towards getting, his mountain soil off of the root ball in exchange for good stuff that would promote good, healthy roots, and better help with the exchange of water and oxygen, which is the issue that I have been. It's taken too long in the winter months, especially for that muddy mass of mountain soil to dry out. We were both also discussing a video that we had seen done by Mariah Live, where they were talking about the second repotting of a Yamadori, and it was a Ponderosa. So it was, of course, valuable information, and it's a really good video. If anybody has a subscription to Mariah, I would recommend this. But in this, Ryan Neal had a tree that had been originally repotted. He had gone a long time. That tree that was in that repot had been in that pot for 10 years. He said because it was doing so well, they hadn't really given it a second look. But here's the deal. When it comes to repotting conifers, it's not a good idea to bare root them. It's just not. Sometimes if you order places from outside the country or outside your area, they will come to you bare rooted. Okay, having said that, that's not the best thing in the world for trees, and we don't bare root. We don't bare root our pines, and we don't bare root our oaks. We leave something. We leave some of the root mass intact every time we repot. So, in the video that we were discussing, Ryan had originally had a root mass. The original mountain soil was, in an area like this. And he'd probably also shaved that block off on the bottom and then put good substrate. Because what he had when he took that tree out of the pot was a mass of fine roots that went all the way that way, went all the way around, and then made a mat at the bottom, which he then cut off that mat at the bottom. The center had been the original mountain soil, but because the tree had done so well, he had just kind of kept looking over at it and going, you good? You good? You good? Okay, I'll get back to you. Are you good? You good? And 10 years passed, and he's like, yeah, I need to get that out of there. So when he pulled that out, it was a pot-shaped block of fine roots in the bottom and on the sides. And he explained that what his job was to do now was to not mess with any of this, was to leave that to be the part that's totally intact. And then so what he started doing was breaking up the substrate in between and taking his chopsticks and working at that ball until he could get his chopstick to go all the way from top to bottom when he had totally, and he didn't cut anything back, because remember, all of this big heavy stuff that he was revealing was connected to these fine roots out there. So he did very little trimming of this. Mostly what he just did was knock all that mud loose out of it, and then put new substrate in the bottom of the pot, and then punch in new substrate, chop in the new substrate from the top. So this is kind of what I would be looking at on this. I don't 100% know what to expect. As I've kind of replaced our substrate, I did that. I poured my tops dressing back on here just before we hit the road, just before I thought I was going to hit the road. I would expect that if I were to unpot this tree, that I wouldn't see a part that is going to be fine roots in some bonsai substrate, and then the other part be mountain soil. I would expect that the original crate, it probably went from the side of a mountain to a flat or a box, and then at that point that root mass probably got cut down to fit into this. In fact, I know it did. This root is cut right on the edge, and the end of the mica pot has a crack in it. That's probably from whatever happened to shove that down. It might have been just from picking up the pot, but the other side didn't crack. Anyway, I'm thinking they had to cut this block of mountain soil down. So I don't think I would have to be ready for anything, but I would go into a repot with this guy, and my bet would be that I'm going to see mountain soil from here to here, and this is the bottom and this is the top. So what I would be wanting to do is to do kind of like repeat what we had just discussed. I would be taking this block of soil out, raking all of this off to the side, probably going back in with this at the day. This does have a little bit of charcoal in it. I'm not a big fan of wood chips in my soil. Anyway. I would probably keep this nice big rocky stuff and the cinder stuff that's in there. And I would go back I would clear all of this out and go back with some good boon mix, and then probably mix some of this back in with it rather than waste it. And I would also get my mycorrhiza that's in here back that way. But then that would leave me the center, like what I had just discussed on that other tree. That would leave the center of the mountain soil what would be new growth area to better facilitate the tree and to help us increase our energy throughout the summer would be the places where I cut that back here and on the bottom. And that is probably what we were going to do. We were going to uproot this tree, not today, not this weekend. This is going to be something we do before our potting window closes. I haven't got it on my calendar yet. This is just something that came up. I knew that this was an avenue when I accepted defeat. The bright side was, when I was accepting defeat on this, I kind of went, well, I guess the good news is we can do our repot. And that is, I was really disappointed in that. I've been a little disappointed in humanity lately, the way things have been going in my country, and I was using my single focus to kind of like, well, we'll worry about other stuff when I come down out of the clouds off this, and then this didn't happen. So yeah, I kind of put myself up for a big letdown on that. Anyway, that's just that. Can't cry. I do this for fun. And there's never been a time for the things that you do for fun you should just maintain those things. You should definitely maintain those things. The good news is we have our direction. We know what we're going to do. And our tree looks really healthy, and it's a really beautiful tree. I don't have to worry now about the next round of grafts. There's not going to be another round of grafts. We just have to watch that one and make sure we don't go knocking it around. And then our colors are starting to recover a little bit from winter, so we're starting to show a little bit greener. It's starting to green up a little bit. It's pushing out new growth, and everything is just pretty much otherwise happy with that. This is going to be our short show. I'm going to catch up on what happened on our little snafu with our Ponderosa and what that meant to us, but otherwise, this is our spring show, y'all. I'm really happy that spring is here, that it's warmer and it's gusty. Like when I started setting up camera, it was sunny. This is blowing in and out, and I'll probably see blue skies and more clouds 1 or 2 more times before our day is done. Like and subscribe if you guys haven't already. I appreciate you, and Frida appreciates you. And thank you so much for watching.